Yeah, you can do that. That's okay. Another chilly morning here in the mountains of Appalachia. Me and Matt's trying to get started this morning, kind of slow going, but he's already been out here with some wood chopping going on, wood splitting, getting ready for the coming winter. And I've been cooking breakfast and cleaning up and doing some things inside the house. We have a few things we want to get started on today and try to finish before the day's out. Definitely the wood's one of them. Matt needs to clean our chimney. We've not had our first fire yet, so he's going to have to get up on the roof, and he does that every year before we start with the building fires in it and cleans out the chimney, so he's going to have to do that. Although we've had these chilly temperatures, even down in the 30s for the past, I guess, 3 weeks now, we've not had a frost. Some places have, but right here at our house, we've not had a frost. 1 or 2 mornings when I'd go out to let the chickens out, it would be like almost, but not quite, not a frost. But Monday morning, it looks like we're going to have our first frost. So there's a lot of things in the garden, like all of my peppers. I still need to get the ones that's still on the vines, probably all the tomatoes. So those are some things that we're going to have to do today too, just in preparation for the first big frost. In the last 3 or 4 days, you can really begin to see the leaves changing. Those beautiful trees, they're putting on their fall garments. You can see the yellows and the reds are really standing out. I've been amazed over the last 3 days how much each day has brought more color. Yesterday, Corey and I had to travel over to Gainesville, Georgia for a little while, and on the Blood Mountain, we went across Blood Mountain on the way in, on the way back. You could really see the beautiful colors. So it's not peak leaf season yet, but it's certainly getting there in the mountains of Appalachia. So I got all the tomatoes, those late tomatoes that we tried for the first time ever. I got all them tore out. I got the framework that Matt had built for them to grow up, tore down, and so that I could, mostly why I did that, it needed to be done, but mostly so that I could reach all these peppers more easily. We have a row of peppers here in this bed, and then the bed, this arch that we have, you can kind of see this cattle panel is in an arch. The other bed where it goes, there's also a row of peppers in that bed. So now I've got to decide what to do with the peppers. I'm going to harvest all the ones that are of any size. Now, a lot of people have told me over the years, and even a lot of subscribers, viewers have told me, that you can pull the pepper plant up and hang it upside down and hang it in your garage or in your basement or somewhere like that. And the peppers that are on it are kind of continue to ripen a little bit. Of course, they won't last all winter or anything like that, but you can kind of extend that time when cold weather, first big frost for us is expected Monday. So when that comes, you can kind of extend it and save those peppers. We really don't have a good place to do that. We have our basement. We could do it certainly down there, but our basement is used for so many things. Of course, I have my laundry. That's where my laundry's at. I have all my Canon stuff down there. Matt has his workbench, and then there's 2 businesses run out of our basement. Katie's shop is in the basement, and then Corey also does all of her soap making, all that kind of stuff. That's all in our basement. So there's not really like a corner or something where we could hang them down that they wouldn't really interfere with the things that are going on in the basement already. So I'd love to try that someday. Maybe I'll be able to, but right now I just don't really have a place where I could do that. But lots of people say that it works really well. It is kind of amazing though, even though we don't have room for that, all the things that take place in our basement. Miss Cindy, Matt's mother, she's always teasing us about, because it is a mess down there, but she says, well, of course it's a mess. Look how many different things are happening out of this basement. Of course, Katie's shop's been there for years. That's where she makes all her jewelry. She has her lapidary, her saw, and her lapidary polishing machine, her cab machine down there. And then that's where Corey's always made her soap. And she makes such large amounts of soap that she has a lot of supplies. And of course, you may be wondering, well, why don't she do that at her house? Well, her and Austin's house is not big enough to actually have a place. There is no place unless you put it in the living room or the kitchen, and then she'd have to kind of move it all to do, to live, and then put it back. So there's just not a good place. So at this time, it makes better sense for her just to leave it where it's at, and we don't mind, even though it means that I don't really have a place. Even if Corey's soap wasn't there, though, I still wouldn't have a good place to actually try hanging them upside down. So now that I've got them kind of cleared out in front of them, I'm going to start working on harvesting the ones that are, there are a lot of ripe ones. I don't know if you can see these over here. A lot of the ones that are already red. And then there's ones, this is the shishitos that are still green. And of course they're edible, they're plenty edible, so I'm gonna harvest them too. But I first thought I'd go through and see the orange ones. I've got some, like I'm going to go ahead and pick this one because there's no reason to leave it. Some of my bell peppers, I've got some bigger ones I see, but then there's some just about this small. But with the cold weather we've been having, they're not really, I mean, they're on their way out definitely. It's not like that if I could leave them, they would ripen in another day or two. That's not going to grow. And I do have a lot of tomatoes though. I kind of tried to raise them up, and that frost will kill them too. They'll be gone. But there's so many little green ones on them that I may just leave them. I'm not going to try to bring those green ones in. I will pick all the red ones though, all them. And even by tomorrow, some of those that are kind of orangey, they may even turn enough by tomorrow for me to come back out here and go one more time around to make sure there's nothing else that I want to take in. I have a lot of cayennes back here on this row, so I hope I'll remember. I think I'll remember which they are. And then I have a lot of my larger, I was hoping these would have time to turn, but I'm going to pick them when they're green. Just get rid of it. This is a really interesting plant that someone, a subscriber, wonderful subscriber sent me. So it's a candy cane pepper. You can kind of see the leaf is variegated, really pretty. But then the actual peppers end up being kind of like a candy cane too, variegated. So, and it's pretty tasty. We've enjoyed that one. But I'm gonna have to go ahead and pick them, I think. So I got all the peppers picked, ended up with a basket. I'll go back through one more time probably tomorrow and just make sure that there wasn't one hiding from me that I didn't see. I'll have to figure out what to do with these in the next few days. I'll probably dry some of them, freeze some of them, and then I'm definitely going to make some more pickles, and I'll leave the link in the description below for the recipe that I've used. I've made them for the first time this year. Really easy in that they're kind of fermented, but also a little bit of vinegar. And you just leave them on your counter for about a week or two, and then you just put them in the refrigerator and eat them like that, so you don't have to process them. I'm lucky that I have a second refrigerator in the basement, so when I do ferment things like this, I usually do cucumbers, just fermented and then put them in the refrigerator, and I didn't do that this year. But when I do things like that, I do have an extra space. Sometimes if you're tight on refrigerator space, you might not be able to do that. Of course, you could use a smaller jar and just not do as many. I like to use either the half-gallon or even the gallon jars, but I have that extra space so that I can store them until we eat them. It's kind of the wrong time of the year, but some of the strawberries that I planted in this second green stalk, I've started from my other ones, just moving the little baby strawberries over here. They've actually tried to produce this fall, not on any great scale. I think we've maybe already eat 3 or 4 strawberries, and then of course here's 3 or 4. That one's about ready to eat, but that's kind of neat to have strawberries this time of the year, even if it's just a few. So this is my one pumpkin that I've got back here. I haven't harvested it yet. I was just hoping it would ripen a little bit more. Of course I could harvest it and eat it even now. The leaves and the vine is dying back, but I'll probably leave it just for a few more days anyway, until, even if it frosts on Monday, it won't hurt the pumpkin. And I mean, until a real hard freeze comes, I may just leave it and see if it'll continue to ripen, because if it ripens fully, it will last better for me through the winter. So even though our peppers and the few tomatoes we have are definitely on their way out because of this cold weather and just because it's the end of the season, our fall things that we've planted are doing really good. So you can see some kale here I've been harvesting, also some kale beside it, and then also down in there you can see the really small kale is just another succession planting that I've started. We've got more kale in our grow bags over here, and in this one on the end, this was kind of nestled down in the tomatoes, but I've put it over here where more sunshine. This is miner's lettuce. So I've grew it before. It's been a while. It's just another type of green. And hopefully now that it's over here in the sunshine, maybe it'll start to spruce up a little bit. I planted it about the same time as the kale, but it was kind of nestled down in those tomatoes, so it wasn't getting as much sunshine. So maybe this will help it spruce up a little bit. In this bed, I had a lot of radishes. We've eaten most of them. You can see those big ones there. I definitely need to pull up and eat. And then in the back, I had 2 rows of radishes, which most of them's gone. And then there in the back, I have some cabbages, and you can see one of them's really big, and the other's kind of so-so. But hopefully they'll just continue to grow. So on one of those days that I was planting fall stuff, I was going to plant some carrots, and then I decided, well, maybe it was still too warm, but I went ahead and planted a little small row. But you can see this is them, so they come up. There's my stick that I put in there to show me where they were at. In case they did start to come up, I'd know where they were at. So you can see, so they did come up. And I guess by now I could definitely plant some more, since it is got much cooler from the day that I planted those. In this bed I have some turnips. These are turnips, and I thinned them, but I really need to thin them a little bit more probably. But hopefully they'll grow. There's not much sunshine back here, but I just couldn't resist putting a few more here. We do have them in the front that some of them have already made turnips, and then some of them kind of succession planting are still coming along.
Once I get that, just get behind me and just keep pressure on the kind of end toward it that way. We good.
Got it cleaned?
I think so.
Ready,
So.
ready for the first fire now?
Yep.
So now that Matt's got the hard part, getting on the roof, now this is the easy part. It's hard to see on the camera, but you can see the creosote that's dropped down. It's kind of that black color at the back inside the pipe. So now he's going to suck it out with a vacuum cleaner. What are you doing? Smiling for the camera. Take your picture. Get your picture made.
Make my picture.
Look at those leaves, the red and the green. I mean the red and the yellow. And there's lots of green still, but ain't that amazing? Just in the last few days. Well, I got your favorite today, suntan oil.
Yep. Beach sickle. Tastes just like copper tone.
Now, tastes like a real coconut.
It's good. Oh, mercy.
Sore?
Nah, not too bad. Just tired.
Matt's at work yesterday. Matt had to work over his head all day doing a ceiling. So his shoulders are sore from that, I guess, ain't they?
Mm-hmm. Yep, putting plywood on the ceiling, holding it up.
Tearing it out
and
and
then screwing it.
Put it back, right? Or did you tear it out the day before?
Yeah.
Rough work. Or dirty work from an old building, right?
Yeah, it was.
It's a good thing they've got people like you to do it.
I guess.
We're losing one of our papers. A little breeze. Well, we got a lot accomplished.
Yeah.
Matt's anxious to build the first fire. We always put off, I mean, I'm sure everybody does this, but it's like you don't want to go from one day running the air conditioner to the next day running the heat full force. So usually this kind of in-between time, we get up in the morning, it's kind of chilly and cold, but we don't build a fire. We don't turn it, we have electric heat, we don't turn it on. We just kind of shiver and then it warms up during the day. But it's about that time.
Yep.
First fire is always nice just because it's warm, but then to go outside and smell the smoke,
Oh, yeah.
that's nice.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like to see the leaves falling and the wood smoke rising.
Well, me and Corey, I had to go to Gainesville yesterday. You know, after you come off Blood Mountain, and you get down there and kind of straightens out. I mean, when it first kind of straightens out, so there's still a lot of curves, but then it really straightens out, and you begin to see a few houses. You remember that's where on the right over in there where they said that Mary Jo's husband, what was his name? Bill Cairns, where he grew up. Did you know that? I've told you that before, I'm sure.
I remember it.
Anyway, you begin to see those little houses. On the way back yesterday, Corey said, she was driving. She said, "Look at that house over there." She said, "I noticed that the smoke was coming out of the roof on the way down, out of the chimney." Anyway, I said, "Yeah," and it was like a little old house. I said, "Yeah, they're already starting their fires." Yeah. And one of those little old houses, you could just picture how cozy it is on the inside. I mean, in your mind, of course, never been in it, but with the smoke kind of curling out of the chimney, and their yard was real neat, but it was an old house, everything neat as a pin, and just picture a little old couple that lived there. That'd be us, right? Except ours may not be neat as a pin.
No. Yeah, it'll be us shortly.
Yeah.
Or directly, as my grandma used to say.
Yeah.
You don't hear that much anymore.
No, not much.
Motorcycles?
I don't know. We're hearing something out on the highway.
What sounds like?
Motorcycles. They're probably looking at the leaves.
Probably. They ain't turned enough yet.
No, not yet. They're just beginning to. Yeah, lots of people used to say directly.
My grandma always said it.
She'd be there directly, or
Make supper directly.
or directly she's going to town or something.
Well, I'm talking to my kind of folks when I hear that.
Yeah.
You just don't hear it much anymore.
No. It's funny, which of course I love to think about language, but when you hear directly, usually it's like direct, like D-R-E.
Yeah, it's not directly.
Right, but if you were,
directly.
But then the funny part is that if you hear it, if somebody was like really emphatic, the way we talk, they might say directly, "I'm going to town," but then they would say, if they were talking about a specific thing, they would say directly. They'd put the directly.
Right.
Yeah.
And emphasize it
Yeah.
to try to make a...
And I told him directly that he was gonna, or I was gonna, if he didn't stop or something, they would emphasize it the other way.
Yep.
Which is really neat to use it both ways.
Yep.
In the book that I'm reading on the channel, Alex Stewart, right now, at the very beginning, John Rice says that he was kind of telling different little things about how he interviewed him over all these years and all that, but talking about some of his language, and he said sometimes Alex would use the word for seen. He would say seed, S-E-E-D, which we hear that a lot. I seed it. But then sometimes he wouldn't. So he said that's why there's, in the book, you'll notice sometimes I use the word seed when Alex is talking. I mean, you know, he's quoting him. And then some times seen. So I think that's true with a lot of people. It just depends on what you're saying.
Depends on what the subject matter is.
Right, yeah. Or how you're using it, like directly or directly. Both ways. These fall days like this where we're working on the firewood, or like knowing that I picked all the peppers because of frost that's coming, probably Monday, hard frost. Always makes me feel kind of like I'm on a Little House on the Prairie or something, like you're doing those last things for winter. Of course, we're not living like that now. We could go to the grocery store and buy peppers. We could turn on the electric heat if we didn't want to build a fire, all those kind of things. But still, I used to feel like that when I was little with Granny and Pap, and we would be, at the end of the season, we would be digging all the potatoes or picking the last of the beans or whatever it was, because they knew weather was coming, that would be the, you want to go ahead and get that done. Always made me feel like that, but it's a good feeling. Kind of like getting all your ducks in a row, or tying up the garden after we worked so hard in it all year.
Putting it to bed.
Mm-hmm. We don't really ever put ours to bed though, because we grow the greens all winter.
Yeah.
But that's minor compared to having the squash and the tomatoes and all the stuff you got to harvest every day.
Yeah.
Gives you a real rewarding feeling though.
Yeah, I think so. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to eat stuff I've either grown or killed.
Yeah.
Because I know that's good food.
Right.
Nobody's had a chance to mess it up.
Yeah. It's strange, or we're strange, maybe. I mean, there's other people like this too, but it's how we were raised to really value work, and to, I mean, it's like where we get our rewarded feeling, satisfaction is from work. Mm-hmm. Pap, he really liked work, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
And when he got older and got sick, I really think that was like when he died, he was ready to go. He was done with life. I mean, part of it was pain, but I think part of it was not being able to do for himself anymore, because every time he tried to do anything, he hurt too bad. But he really liked work, and over the years, we all joked about it. I mean, you'd be like, sometimes his wanting to work caused problems, like when he insisted on trying to bring the tin for our house, the metal for the roof up here when we were building it, even though there was like how many inches of
about 10 inches,
10 inches of snow. But if we got it up here, we could work, even though you really couldn't.
Oh, gosh,
Anyway,
that was a
yeah,
disaster.
Yeah, that was a disaster. But anyway, so things like that. But Granny, after he died, Granny was telling me and Paul one day, maybe Steve was there too, but about a funny story. She was, of course, thinking of memories and things about Pap. We were talking about him, but that I had never heard before was that when we just all assumed, even as a kid, he just loved work. Always. That's just how he found that so rewarding, and he was used to working hard. But anyway, she said that when during the war, Papa Wade, he had one leg shorter than the other from falling off a log cabin when he was a boy that wasn't fixed right. So when they drafted him, he was like turned down, We wish I knew that part. But he did go to Newport News, Virginia, and he worked in the shipyards. And one time Mama had went to visit him, and she left Pap with Big Grandma, with his mother's mother. Anyway, and she was making him work in her flower bed. And she was telling him what to do or whatever, and he said, I just wish you'd go ahead and die. And she said, well, Jerry, that's mean. Why would you say that? And he said, because then I wouldn't have to work in your flower bed no more. And of course and she said, Granny said since she'd been married to Pap, they would always tell that story and laugh because they thought it was funny, a little kid saying that. But me and Paul said, well, you mean he didn't want to work? He didn't want to work in the flower bed? And Granny said, well, all I can figure is he didn't want to work in the flower bed because he wasn't getting nothing out of that. If he'd been working in the garden and knew he's going to get some good food out of it, he probably would have liked to work in it. But
I'm a little bit that way.
You like to work, but just it's something that's...
Well, no, I mean, it's as far as flowers versus food.
Oh, food, yeah.
I mean, flowers are pretty and all, but,
yeah.
If you're gonna work at it that hard, grow something you can eat.
Yeah, that's true.
And just look at the wildflowers as well. That's just
that's the way you like it.
Common sense thing to me.
I do love my flowers.
Oh yeah, I do too. But that's just an awful lot of work for something to look at in my estimation.
Yeah.
But that's me.
Yeah. It's good to have a work ethic, though.
Yeah, it'd be bad if I didn't.
Yeah, you'd be in a bad position.
I'd be hating life.
Yeah. Several years ago, Matt was working at work, and he was working on, what were y'all working on, the tennis courts or something? I don't know, for the county over there, but they were paving. Remember when you seen that old man?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, y'all were doing something else.
Yeah, we were totally doing something else, and they had those people contracted, and I think the old man owned the company.
But Matt noticed him right off because he was like so old.
Yeah, and he was limping really bad and just having a hard time, but he was working.
Yeah, in the hot sun.
And yeah, it was in the 90s,
Yeah.
and he was slinging a sledgehammer, driving posts, and he was, he was hobbling pretty bad till he got to where he was going, and when he got himself where he steadied up where he could stand up, he swung that hammer like a 25, 30-year-old guy, and just on and on and on and on, and it was hot. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure he had worked all his life long, and it's probably what kept him being able to go at that age.
And then the next day he had a cane, but he was still going.
He was on the job.
And then you finally, it got, because y'all were both, y'all wasn't working on that, but how...
We were working next to what
right, so
they
you
were doing.
Finally, one of them started talking to you or something, and you asked about him, and they were like, he works like that all the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, I just was interested because, you just don't see that, and he's part of that, cut out of that old cloth, you know.
Yeah.
He's always been used to working, and as long as he can, he's going to keep working,
Yeah.
And I guess we will too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'd like to be working at something of my own, but regardless, I wouldn't just sit down.
Yeah.
You just got to keep going.
Right. Lots of different types of work's rewarding, though. I've worked in the offices and felt rewarded and satisfied when I had a big project and I finished it and it was done. It was all on I was all sitting at a desk doing it on a computer or whatever. But there's something really satisfying about doing it, working with your hands somehow, like chopping the wood or stacking the wood or growing the garden or, hoeing taters, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's just something really rewarding about working with your hands, which I find working with my mind rewarding too. Like I said, that all the years I worked sitting behind a computer, but...
You work with your mind?
I try to, try to use my mind.
You did once.
What? Use my mind?
When you picked your mate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, picked a good one.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but it is something really, by the sweat of your brow and your hands, there's just something so rewarding and satisfying about it.
I'd like to work it just solely getting meat from the woods and fish from the water. That's what I would like to do all the time.
Yeah.
But that don't happen that way.
No. Maybe it will someday.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
See all those tops of those pines? They need to be gone.
I know.
But my goodness, what a mess that'd make.
Well, if you just drop them where they're at.
Well, yeah, it's just, but I can, but it's just going to, even if you don't do anything, it's still going to make a mess of the wood. But as the sun starts to dip in the sky, that really blocks everything we got.
Could somebody cut them and leave them laying?
I could cut them.
I know, but somebody like top them.
I ain't going to pay nobody to do that. Because they're useless trees anyway. They just need to be cut down. I just hate to tangle up the woods, in other words, what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Would let in more sunshine.
That lowest one right there is a big, big, big tree.
Yeah, it is.
When you get up to the base of it, it's big.
Yeah. What if you cut all of them but that one? Remember how pretty, which we had to cut the ones you cut because of the house, but remember how beautiful they'd be when they was covered in snow?
Oh yeah, it's pretty.
It was so pretty because they were so big. White pines grow so fast.
If I hadn't cut those, they'd probably done hit the house.
Probably.
All the bees.
I know. Well, I was getting the wood.
They're working hard because it's just about done.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll be so glad when they're done because they irritate me.
They love you. The bees love you.
Why?
I don't know, but
Why did it just start?
Well, it's been several years.
Yeah, but it just started just one day. I walked out and they just started hitting me in the face.
Release some kind of scent that they like.
Pheromone.
Yeah, pheromone. Because they don't bother me at all. You know that. I've been a little while ago, I was in the backyard and there was no bees, and you walk out there and they start dive bombing your head.
Yeah.
And I've been out there for 30 minutes. Well, we hope that you've enjoyed going along with us today as we try to get these last few fall chores done before cold weather arrives on Monday. And as always, we hope you'll continue to drop back by often and help us celebrate Appalachia.